qualifiers, and we'll see you in Pro Tour Prague in May.
Hello again. It's Brian David Marshall. I'm Randy Bueller. It was kind of fun watching the Hawaii footage there. You got Mark Herberhold talking about how amazing Hawaii was before he won. You think those guys are your friends now, Mark? They probably like you a little better with $40K in your pocket.
I don't know. He said he was a little tired. He thinks they were a little tired of him just sitting around for the week afterwards, sitting there quietly and going, I want a Pro Tour.
Sounds about right. So who do you think's going to win this Pro Tour?
I've been going back and forth on it, and I think I got to take Osawa.
Yeah?
I got to take the deck. I love this deck. I love Graft. I love the big Scab Clan Mauler. I love the Graft strategy. I think it's the most powerful strategy available right now, if you can get it in this draft format. In other words, if you're in a position to get that, I think if everyone's drafting it, it probably gets pretty thin. I mean, you can see that a little bit in Brackman's deck. Brackman's Simic, but there's not very many Simic cards.
No, it's not an aggressive deck at all. I mean, Brackman's deck is very much the control deck in this matchup. I mean, this is the one I'm supposed to like, right? To sort of sit back and gain control and block and draw some extra cards.
Drawing cards, that's your style. You love to draw cards.
I think you really have to respect the aggro decks in this format, though. I mean, it's tricky because I feel like...
But that's not what people were saying, right? I mean, that's not what people were saying this weekend when you talk to the players. They're like, oh, it's all about 9-drops or it's all about control. Or,
really?
I mean, I don't agree with them.
Yeah, I keep getting bashed by Azorius First Wing, Mistral Charger.
I'm sorry about that.
Seems like the Azorius aggro deck can be quite good. The Bloodgraft aggro deck can be quite good. The thing is, I think the card set does favor the aggro decks. The problem is that the mana in the format doesn't. Because if you're playing an aggro deck, you have to hit your 1-drop and your 2-drop and your 3-drop. And, I mean, if you hiccup and you get to turn 4 and you've got a 1-1 in play, you're dead. But you can't recover from that position if you're an aggro deck. If you get to turn 4 or 5 and you're not attacking, if you don't have 4, 6 power creatures in play by turn 4 or 5, you just lose. That deck doesn't recover. It's so crucial that you hit tempo, that you play this tempo game. I mean,
you've got to mulligan very aggressively with a deck like that.
I think that's funny. It sounds like one of the finalists may have lost his deck. Oh. If anybody found a deck, the call just went out to the room.
I have the list right here.
Yeah, we can recreate it, obviously, if we have to. That's funny. So I think the card set favors aggro, but the problem is you can build this awesome aggro deck, but you can't really get it down to 2 colors.
The mana does not.
The mana does not favor aggro, and so because your best case scenario is 2 and a splash, but solidly 3-color happens all the time, even if you're trying to avoid it. 4-color happens sometimes, even if you're trying to avoid it. So that you start these control decks, which are like 2-color base, but splash this and this. Right. This was Neil Reese's strategy. Is the way he put it. You basically pick one of the blue guilds from Dissension. That's your base, and then you splash red and black into it. That seems awesome.
That does seem fantastic. But I think that has this pull, and then you become continually. I think that's a great strategy, but I think what's dangerous about it is what happens is a lot of players, and I've seen it with a number of drafts, get more. They're like, well, I can push the envelope a little further. That worked. If I could squeeze in, a Wrecking Ball into my Simic deck. Well, I can squeeze a Wrecking Ball and a Bright Flame. I mean, not that specific example. People continually tax their mana bases.
Which opens up the door for the aggro
And then
deck.
at that point,
suddenly they're that much more vulnerable. They have no chance against an aggro deck with even a medium draw.
If you want to get a good look at, some of Osawa's other draft decks this week, if you go to the Japanese coverage, if you go to the Japanese coverage page, in the Japanese blog, and all the written text is in Japanese, but the deck lists are in English.
Okay.
And so, by the way, it's a really interesting thing you can do while you're watching Pro Tour coverage if you're out there. A lot of times the Japanese coverage will have deck lists up, and you can catch some of the Japanese decks that you might not see on our side.
Oh, nice.
We have a different team of reporters working on this,
right.
And they focus on where maybe, you're automatically have a little more affinity to the people that you know and that you play with. So Keita sees some players that we don't, he has been following Osawa all weekend.
Right.
He's been following him all weekend. He's been like, this guy's been drafting this deck. He's been having tremendous success with it. This is what you should be doing at home in Tokyo.
Wow. Is
you should be drafting these decks. You should have 7 2-drops, and you should be taking Sellsword Brutes early, and you should just continue to attack and build up your creatures with grab counters.
It's interesting you mentioned Sellsword Brute because I said, okay, there's the Azorius aggro deck and there's the Simic aggro deck, but the third one is the Helmut Summersberger deck, right? Where you just draft Hellbent. You draft Rakdos, but not even Controller's Rakdos. You just first pick Sellsword Brute.
Absolutely.
You do 1 drops, 2 drops, Taste for Mayhem, dump your hand, R for +4/+0 is quite the saucy enchantment.
Quentin Morton, after the draft, kind of clucked a little bit. He's like,
I should have done that.
I'm pretty sure I could have had that deck. I saw it going by. It was, it kind of seemed like, maybe I should have done that. I wonder if he's sitting down, sitting down now thinking, that would have probably been a better call. I mean, apparently the deck is, you can get the deck no matter what anyone around you is drafting, assuming they're not drafting the Helmut Summers. Assuming it's not Helmut Summersberger.
Right.
To your right.
So you can pick Osalo, but I really think the mana problems mean the control deck is the better strategy. I totally respect the aggro strategy. I think it's tremendous. I think if you can pull it off, it's awesome, but I don't think you can consistently get good enough mana to be able to go turn 2 First Wing, right, or turn 2 even Coiled Oracle, right? It's just so hard to get the mana to work out consistently enough that I think that the aggro deck is inevitably going to hiccup in at least 1 and possibly 2 games during a match, and that just opens up the window for the control deck.
I respect the managers. I mean, as I'm looking at his deck, I'm looking like, this deck looks great, and then I look up here, to this section right here, which has 8 forests, 6 mountains, 3 swamps, and I'm like, where are the fixers? There's nothing, You don't
even have time for Karuz in that deck.
Right.
You don't even have time to play a bounce land.
Karuz get a little clumsy. Signets, your
you want to play it. You're supposed to be playing 2 power on turn 2.
I want to play my Aqua Spider. I can't play my Signet.
Right.
So I mean,
the control decks get to take all of those mana fixtures. Big Oots had tremendous success with that all weekend. Rasmus Seabass only lost 1 match. Got through it. Got through the tournament just drafting mana fixtures, playing 4 Karuz, 3 Signets in every one of his decks, and just taking all the good cards.
Now again, Asala though does not feel he's without mana fixtures, and doesn't feel like he has to draft them early because he has a different strategy than everyone else in the draft. Utopia Sprawl. He has 2 Utopia Sprawls.